t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime. Tu m'avais manqué, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime. T'es ma préférée, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime.
Hello there and welcome to Brussels, My Love, Euronews' weekly talk show about the love-hate relationship many have with the EU. I'm Maeve McMahon. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the show, New Year, same EU. 2025 has arrived and with it a host of challenges. With cable cuts in the Baltic Sea and a number of countries facing gas shortages, the top focus this year will be security. As Warsaw takes over the EU's rotating presidency from Budapest, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is under pressure to make Europe safe. With the EU's two political powerhouses, France and Germany, weakened by internal political disputes, we ask if Poland is up to the task. And speaking of Germany, the EU's biggest member state is in campaign mode ahead of February federal elections. As German voters decide who to vote for, one man has already made up his mind. South African billionaire and Donald Trump confidant Elon Musk says the far-right AfD will save Germany. In the week that Italy's Giorgia Meloni visits Trump, we're asking, why is Musk meddling in European politics? A warm welcome to our guests this weekend. Antonios Nestoras, the founder of EPIC, that's the European Policy Innovation Council, a new think tank here in town. Dorota Bavolek, Brussels correspondent with the Polish national broadcaster TVP, and Jack Schickler, Euronews' very own reporter. Welcome all. Thank you for being here. And of course, Happy New Year. Thank you. Before we hear your expectations, though, for this year, let's just hear why Donald Tusk has stepped into EU's centre stage.
Let's do everything to make Europe strong again. These were the words of Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk at a gala to launch Warsaw's presidency of the EU Council. An optimistic, hands-on approach that he might need. Poland takes over at a key moment for Europe's security. Trump's arrival is days away. Ukraine remains bogged down in a war of attrition, and trade relations with China are deteriorating. On top of that, the situation in the Middle East remains tense and could trigger pressure on the EU's migration policy at any moment. Meanwhile, Romania and Bulgaria just joined the Schengen zone of visa-free travel, two countries with acute governmental crises. So making Europe strong again? Will Donald Tusk get the support he needs?
So no pressure there on Donald Tusk, right? And the Polish presidency, a lot at stake. Dorota, let's start with you. What should we expect for the next 6 months with Poland steering the ship?
Well, the main motto, the main priority of Polish presidency is security, and I think Warsaw will do everything to reinforce it or to actually create it from the scratch when we talk about the European defense. I think we are the best placed country to do it because we have war at our borders and we have these Russian missiles or drones falling from time to time mistakenly on our ground. And also, Polish government at the moment is the most stable one in Europe. It's a coalition government, actually, which includes Social Democrats, Liberals, and centre-right. And Donald Tusk has a huge European experience. He was the chef of the European Council for 5 years. He was the chef of the European People's Party. So I think Warsaw is right when it says that Europe is lucky to have Poland conducting her, driving her for the next 6 months.
Well, it certainly was quite a glitzy affair there in the Warsaw Opera House. Antonio Costa, the current EU Council President, assisted that inauguration. But we didn't see Andrzej Duda there, the president. I think he was off skiing at the time. Jack Schickler, do locals in Poland care about this responsibility they have?
Well, indeed. I mean, as you say, it's looking one of the more stable governments in Europe at the moment, at a time when France and Germany, the traditional kind of motor of Europe, are looking a bit creaky. But there is this dynamic between the president, who is affiliated with the Law and Justice Party, there's a big kind of enemy of Tusk's own, and some signs of kind of should we see his absence as a sign of antagonism between the two, between the president and the prime minister, and how will that play out during the
Yes,
6-month
exactly.
presidency?
It's just that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, Donald Tusk's role will be to install unity as well. But if there's a lot of internal squabbling, it'll be hard for him to do that. But we have moved on, Antonios, from the Hungarian presidency, which had a motto, Make Europe Great Again. We've moved on to Make Europe Strong Again. Will this resonate people? Have people got the message of what's at stake here for our security?
The people have, yes. I'm not sure if the institutions know that, if they take the message and what they're going to do about it. So I'm very happy with Poland taking the presidency right now, and with all this optimism, of course, because we have to make Europe more secure. We need a secure union. It's a fundamental public good. It's the foundation for everything, the economy, democracy, the industry, competitiveness, innovation, and so on. If the EU cannot provide security, then what the hell are we doing here? We can go home and pray or tweet about the US elections. We need to be more secure.
And we see a number of member states have taken the matter into their own hands. We saw Denmark have introduced conscription even for women, Jack. Is this something we'll see other member states start doing?
Well, I mean, we're seeing kind of increased investment in militaries. Not all of them have gone with conscription as the answer, but certainly in kind of kit and expanding their workforce in the military. We heard Donald Trump repeat just again that NATO members need to increase their military spending to 5% of GDP,
which Poland will do this year.
Which Poland will do, but not many of the other allies will manage. I mean, the target was traditionally 2%. This is an extraordinary level of military spending to reach.
2%.
5%.
5%.
That Trump is now talking about, which is even higher than a target that lots of people were already struggling to meet. Will that? I don't think that will necessarily mean through conscription in a lot of member states, but it is a lot of money at a time when governments don't have a huge amount of it to splash around.
I think it's the role of the government to actually explain to people that there is a need. People need to understand. I mean, in Italy, in Spain, in the south of Europe, they say, yeah, but we prefer to spend the money on social goals. Of course, it's better for the voters, for the citizens. But, in the East, we know it's no point to build a new hospital or a new school when actually in few months or in few years we will find out that in this school children will be forced to learn Russian, and in this hospital there will be Polish boys or men that will have their legs or arms amputated because of the war.
You can see that with energy infrastructure and what's happening in the Baltics. There's no use of creating critical infrastructure if you cannot protect it in the end. So security, as I said, is really fundamental, and I believe, I have a different perspective, that the people are realizing it more and more, and there is an expectation that the European Union is going to provide this security, and that is needs a change of mentality. It's not about only the percentage of the spending or the conscription. These are all tools, and they are good signs. But it's also the mentality of making Europe a security provider, which was not supposed to be since the beginning.
And you mentioned that critical infrastructure. Well, in fact, while we were hibernating, a lot of us on Christmas, in fact, electricity cable links to Estonia were damaged in what the EU fears were acts of sabotage by Russia. We saw the EU Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas put out a statement with the European Commission on that point, condemning this destruction of this crucial infrastructure and also proposing sanctions to target this fleet. Now, Jack, there's an investigation underway. European governments believe that the Kremlin are responsible for this. As I say, the investigation is underway. But will we see more attacks like this?
Well, it does seem like they have identified the tanker they believe is allegedly responsible, and it looks like there is going to be a kind of NATO response of a fleet to patrol the Baltic Sea. But indeed, this heightening of tensions is exactly what Dorota was referring to. That we are going to see, Russia has invested massively in its war economy. And it has been perpetrating kind of very aggressive strategy by a variety of means. I mean, we saw what happened in the UK in Salisbury. It's happened elsewhere in Europe as well. There's an information war. and there is all these kind of hybrid attacks taking place by many different means that Europe and NATO and the EU will have to develop a strategy against.
And we need to discuss more and more. I mean, these cable cuts, for example, they will take months to repair. It will, of course, mean higher electricity prices then for people in Estonia this winter. Is it something as well of concern for Polish people, Dorota?
Yeah, I think the hybrid war in Europe is actually happening at huge scale at the moment. Maybe that's what people don't realize. Politicians do, but they don't talk about it so much, because actually if they are talking about it, they relieve their weaknesses. But it's very difficult to fight it. You know, in Poland, since few months, we have ransoms, we have fire being put on in different public places and factories, and this is being done by foreign agents. Actually, we discover only later on. Poland is also the country who is facing the biggest number of cyber attacks. Of course, politicians will not talk about it a lot to not scare people, but it's a huge challenge, and it's high time that it's being dealt with.
Well, this week we did see the Polish Prime Minister, or the Deputy Prime Minister, saying that Poland is in fact at war with Russia in cyberspace.
Yes.
So
yes,
this
it's
is really
exactly that. It's exactly that, and putting a lot of efforts into it. Yeah. So here is one more space where actually Europe should work together. You know, Poland should not be left on her own with it.
And is
some systems
Europe
should have
working
been
together
created
here,
or
Antonios? Are member states trusting each other in this area?
Well, there are certainly efforts to cooperate. I believe that given the circumstances and given the institutional capacity that the Commission has, it's doing a good job. There's a lot more to be done. But as I said, it needs political will. It needs a change of mentality. It needs, for us, for people, for institutions, for officials, for elected politicians to realize that we're living in a different world than 2007, let's say, the last treaty change in the EU. We have to reform the EU in order to be able to tackle the challenges that we face, and these challenges are common. That's another thing that we have to understand. It's not about Germany by itself to deal with these challenges, or France, or Italy, or Greece, or Poland by itself. We need to be together. This is becoming more and more obvious beyond any demonstration for everyone. So in that respect, I'm optimistic that there are good things happening.
You're very optimistic, but of course the reality on the ground is there's a lot of government in trouble. As we said, we're looking ahead to elections taking place. And of course, we have to discuss the fact that Donald Trump will be inaugurated in a couple of weeks, just 2 weeks. We saw this week Giorgia Meloni, Italian's Prime Minister, visited him in Mar-a-Lago. We do understand she had a phone call with Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, who's been very sick with pneumonia, but managed to speak to her to also set her points on the table. But Jack, does this mean that Giorgia Meloni will be the main interlocutor for Donald Trump when he becomes president again?
Well, I think every European leader is going to be trying to exert the most influence they can. We already saw Emmanuel Macron, despite his difficulties at home, have a bit of a diplomatic coup in inviting Trump to the inauguration of the new Notre Dame Cathedral. I think every leader is going to be thinking, what is my best way into the new US administration? Clearly, Donald Trump is someone who rewards loyalty, what he sees as political allies. So those European leaders who are seen as further to the right, such as Meloni, will probably do better out of that deal.
And of course, in the previous Trump administration, Antonios, we saw tense relations, you'll remember as well, Dorota, between Brussels and Washington, with Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Accords, the Iran nuclear deal. He moved as well the US embassy from Israel to Jerusalem. Should we be even more scared here in Europe that he'll be president again?
Well, we will see what happens. Actually, the one positive thing is that we know what to expect already. Yes, it's the second term, so we know Donald Trump much better. But maybe it will be also a different Trump this time, because the times are different, and he also has his experiences. We will see. We will see.
I have a heretical point of view when it comes to Trump. I think it's the best thing that ever happened to Europe, in the sense that it's pushing us towards more cooperation and more self-dependency, instead of relying all the time on US military might and US power and US presence in Europe.
Yeah, coming back to defense issue, for example, that's the best example. It's only Donald Trump, finally, who can force Europe to increase their spendings on this purpose.
But we were also seeing this week, he refused to rule out military action in Greenland. So it's not just him weakening his commitment to NATO, which I think has been out there as a possibility for a long time. But we're now even talking about the possibility of military force against a territory that belongs to an EU member state, Denmark.
And meanwhile, of course, in Kiev, they're waiting with bated breath for him to take over. The Defence Minister, Mr. Kellogg, was meant to visit Kiev very soon this year, but I believe that visit has been put off. But of course, a lot at stake. We will see what happens when he does come into power and how relations, of course, are between here and there. But we saw a report as well this week from the International Crisis Group saying that there's 10 wars that we need to watch in 2025 from South Sudan to Gaza. So it will be another very challenging year, a lot at stake for the continent, Jack Schickler, and a lot to be done when it comes to member states working together. But we've seen a change of tone in EU summits, right, with Antonio Costa at the helm. That is, of course, the new Portuguese man who is the EU Council President. He's calling to have a retreat early February and bring member states together to work closer together and find solutions, as opposed to in these overnight settings, which frankly were no good for anyone.
Exactly. We do have a new set of politicians in charge with a new 5-year mandate and a new European Commission as well. So after a year, last year, which was basically about institutional change and a lot of stasis and not many new policy ideas, we have a new set of people in charge of the EU executive, as well as Antonio Costa in charge of meetings of EU leaders. So maybe there will be a fresh dynamic. But as it's clear from all that we've just been discussing, they certainly have a lot to do.
They have a lot too. And be interesting because Donald Tusk, of course, formerly had that position. Now he's representing Poland and national interests. So I'm sure we'll see a couple of clashes there as well.
Well, we will see for sure, but at the same time we have Polish presidency, so we should, not show our own interest as much during the next 6 months as we could so far. The main goal of changing this format of the EU Council meetings, European summits, is actually to not show all these clashes and the different points of view. When the meeting will be shorter and it will be no pressure to come up with the final decision, then we will not have to report that they don't agree on something. At the same time, I don't think it will be an easy job for Antonio Costa because of what is happening around Europe and in Europe, but also because Viktor Orban is still there, Robert Fico is still there, and there will be a new German chancellor.
And keep an eye on Austria as well. We've been reporting on it, the situation there as well on Euronews. I want to talk about Schengen. Of course, it'll be celebrating 40 years of existence this year. That is the border-free area. We saw 2 new countries join, or 2 member states who've been waiting for 13 years to join. That's Bulgaria and Romania. But they're joining, Antonio, at a time where a number of member states are introducing checks. Is it bad timing for them to join?
It's never a bad time to join Schengen. It's just that it's sad that it's happening at this time when unilaterally member states, especially Germany, for example, because of domestic pressures, domestic political concerns, they're introducing limitations to Schengen. And Schengen, the freedom of movement of people, is probably, after the single market or with the single market, the most fantastic achievement of the European Union. So it's just, as you said, bad timing. It's a sad thing to see. But it was, high time for the 2 countries. It was time for them to join.
And that's what locals think as well. To hear more about how this will impact their country, we can take a listen now to Euronews' Romania correspondent. That's Maria Mois.
This success was celebrated properly in Romania and Bulgaria. We even had fireworks and champagne on the borders because Romanians are very happy to be able to go on vacation within the European Union without waiting for hours for border checks. There will be a green wave from here, from Bucharest to Greece. Also, economically, lifting the borders between Romania and Bulgaria, between Romania and Hungary, will reduce the delays for trucks. The goods will reach their destination faster. That means lower prices, and that will be reflected in people's pockets.
Maria Mois there reporting for us from Romania. And of course, the Romanian Prime Minister expects a 2% increase in GDP annually. So he's talking about €6 billion at stake. So is this the only good news story perhaps of 2025?
No, but I believe in these figures because the Schengen has a great profits for its members, and it's sad that these border controls are reinforced. But I think it's a result also of failed migration policy in Europe, no, and the fact that until recently no one wanted to recognize that illegal migration is a part of hybrid war. What is happening on the Polish-Belarusian border? It's a hybrid war, and that's why, after months, after years, the decision of Polish Prime Minister to actually suspend the right to the asylum was accepted by the Commission, because it was recognized that the situation is extraordinary and it's a part of a hybrid attack organized by Minsk or Moscow. So that's one of the effects what is happening inside Schengen. And I think if the migration policy will be fixed, there will be no reason whatsoever to reintroduce border control.
But we now have a new migration pact, which was presented as a historical compromise, a big opportunity for Europe to finally have a common asylum and migration policy. So if you have this historical compromise, this new deal, and unilateral actions at the same time that are not compatible, I mean, that's should raise some questions at least.
But you're right that Schengen is seen as a crowning achievement of EU integration, but each time there's a problem, it's often Schengen that bears the brunt of it. You saw it with the terrorist attacks, you saw it with COVID, now you see it with these migration problems, that each time there's an issue the EU is confronted with, those borders, internal borders, bear the brunt, and the border checks are reintroduced.
It happened also with COVID. Suddenly, the borders were there. I think it's a bad reflex.
Yeah.
Okay. And on that point, we can conclude this very interesting conversation. Thank you so much to our guests. And you stay with us here on Euronews, because shortly we will be back with you to tell you why the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, is taking up lots of airtime in Europe this week and making lots and lots of enemies. See you very soon here on Euronews. Hello there and welcome back to Brussels, My Love, Euronews' weekly talk show. I'm Maeve McMahon, and along with our panel, we're just taking a look back at the major news stories of late. And one that turned our head as we look ahead to snap federal elections in Germany in February was this. Billionaire Elon Musk using his very own platform X to tell the world that, quote, AfD will save Germany. AfD, of course, is known for its Eurosceptic, populist and anti-immigrant stance. Germany, of course, is preparing to vote after the so-called traffic light coalition made up of the Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Social Democrats, the Greens and the pro-business Free Democrats collapsed before Christmas. So I guess the first question to our panel is this free speech on the part of Elon Musk, or is this clearly foreign interference, especially given the fact that Elon Musk will be joining Donald Trump in a couple of weeks in office?
Yeah, that's the question that the European leaders and politicians need to answer, and as soon as possible. Elon Musk is causing a big headache to the politicians across Europe, and it's very surprising. It's very shocking, I would say, because until now, the behavior like that, actions like that, which are pure disinformation, which is interference in the electoral system, were conducted by some dodgy Russian oligarchs, for which they landed on the EU sanction lists. And now we have the American millionaire and the future Secretary of State who is doing exactly the same. So what do we do? What he's doing is fake news. What he's doing is interference in the electoral elections.
Well, we've seen as well a number of political groups in the Parliament have invited Elon Musk, right, to the European Parliament to sit down. He's also been interfering in the United Kingdom. We've seen upsetting Nigel Farage, saying he's not fit to run even the UK Reform Party.
Yeah, indeed. He has an interest in the German elections, as you said, but his most forceful intervention has been, in fact, in the UK, where he called for the US to intervene and effectively overthrow a government that was democratically elected with a huge majority only a few months ago. And that is an extraordinary intervention to take place. As you say, Russia isn't the only place with oligarchs. The US has some of its own, and I doubt that we'll see sanctions, frankly. But there is a real question for Europe and the EU about how are they going to respond to this threat.
How should they respond?
DSA.
That's how they're feeling, Antonios. I think that sigh really
The rules
captures
are
how
there.
they're feeling.
The laws are
It's a
there.
headache, you know, it's a
DSA.
headache. Look, I think Elon Musk is like probably the most brilliant mind of our generation, but when it comes to politics, he's really naive if he thinks that the 20th century divisive politics that AfD stands for is like the solution for the future that can save Germany. Anyway, Germany cannot be saved by itself. None of the European countries can be saved by themselves. We need Europe, and that's the problem, or one of the fundamental problems with AfD and other Eurosceptic parties. But I do not believe that censorship works. It never worked, and it's not working in a digitalized era, a network society, and a globalized, interdependent world.
And it's a little bit ironic because a lot of people were worried that Trump wouldn't be interested in Europe, that he would ignore his alliance with Europe. And now here we are, even before his inauguration, thinking maybe he's a little bit too interested in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one German Green MEP has sent a letter to the European Commissioner for Tech on this matter, calling for the European Commission to investigate this. Damien Busselager says he's nothing personal against Elon Musk, but he's concerned about his misuse of power. Take a listen.
I'm more concerned about the systemic power that is agglomerating, that goes from economic to political power, but also very much into the opinion agglomeration, so the power to shape opinions across the world. There are people who believe that this is free speech. You know, finally everybody can say what they want, and this is then freely transported through the internet to everyone. We have a situation where a couple of people's speech is much louder than that of the rest of us, and we don't have the tools yet. I think what the DSA could potentially allow us to do is to see whether Elon Musk in the past and currently is basically unfairly boosting his posts.
That's the German MEP there, Damien Busselager, speaking to us from Berlin, saying that we don't have the tools on the table now to stop Elon Musk. Has he broken the law? I guess that's the question, Jack.
I mean, there is this new act in force, the Digital Services Act, that's supposed to regulate big online platforms. And you might think this is exactly a case when it should be used. But, you know, the EU is also going to be extremely careful that it doesn't look like it's censoring activity. You know, in principle, there should be nothing wrong with interviewing a political leader, particularly ahead of a general election. And it has to tread really carefully about you know, not being seen itself to intervene in national elections, even within its own member states.
And that's why the European Commission this week, during their daily press briefing, said they would not be cutting out Twitter. They would be still using our X for their daily communications. But Elon Musk loves a good fight, right? And he hates a regulation. And the EU loves regulation, so we could see a lot of clashes there when he joins Donald Trump in office.
Look, he's a provocator. If nothing else, he's a brilliant provocator. And we don't have to take the bait. We have to discuss and focus on the real problems, provide solutions for the real problems, like even in Germany or in Europe, the energy reform, economic stagnation. Let's focus on that instead of who Musk is talking with. It's like, don't take the bait. Don't act like school children. We don't like him because he talks with her, or we don't like her because he talks with him, and so on.
Well, that's what Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, said. He was asked by Stern magazine about this interference, and his answer was, do not feed the troll. We saw Emmanuel Macron as well also weighing in, accusing Elon Musk of intervening directly in our democratic processes here in Europe. Elon Musk also called Scholz a fool, I believe, before Christmas, when his government collapsed. I feel like we'll be spending a lot of time, Dorota, here as journalists quoting what Elon Musk has said to who and who he's upset this year.
Or maybe the problem will be solved itself, because the boss of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, is a very egocentric person. You know what happened to Steve Bannon when he started to attract more attention than the President Trump. So there is also a little, maybe not very diplomatic hope that Donald Trump will also finally change decision about his first advisor.
Indeed, we'll have to wait and see. We just know that Elon Musk did spend a lot of money supporting the campaign, $250 million, of course, to help him secure, and is looking forward to his political future. So we'll see how he continues to interfere or observe European politics. But for now, we can bring this conversation to a close. Thank you so much to our panel for being with us, and thank you so much for watching. See you very soon here on Euronews. Hello there and welcome to Brussels, My Love, Euronews' weekly politics chat show. I'm Maeve McMahon, and along with this weekend's panel, Antonios Nestoras, Dorota Bavolek and Jack Schickler, we're taking a look back at the news across Europe this week. And one topic every European country seems to be talking about is Dry January, an initiative that started over a decade ago by a charity in the UK to encourage people to abstain from alcohol to give their pocket and their health a chance to recover from the festive period. The campaign is targeted to social drinkers and has gained traction all across the continent, with millions of people joining each year. So, is this a boring idea or is it a healthy one, Jack?
Well, I admire those who have see this through a whole month without drinking, if they are normally people who drink. And, after the festive excess and the Christmas, eating and drinking that's taken place, you can see why they do it. But, I broke that resolution in the small hours of the 1st of January, and there's no going back from that.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers did too. Antonios, are you doing Dry January? Is this something that's taken off over in Greece?
Oh, I'm with Jack there. I'm not doing the Dry January. But look, since you mentioned Greece, we had, growing up in Greece, we had 2 dry months every year. Before Easter and before Christmas. We called it fasting. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say here is that, the good thing about religion is that it doesn't regulate, it does not create laws, not in Europe, not anymore. As long as this is a public awareness campaign, fantastic, because knowledge builds healthy habits. But I would be a bit more suspicious if the state wanted to intervene with lifestyle choices.
Well, that's interesting because there's a big debate in France about this, with the health minister weighing in on this and many people looking for more policy measures. But as you say, that would upset as well a lot of people. Dorota, what about you? Are you doing Dry January? Is it something in Poland?
I'm not doing Dry January, not because I'm Polish, because we need to fight with these stereotypes of Polish drinking a lot. According to all the research published every year, Poland is not in the first 10 member states with the biggest consumption of alcohol.
Oh,
France is.
France.
I can also Germany is. Luxembourg is. Spain is also, and some eastern countries, actually Czech
Romania
Republic
and Denmark as well.
Czech Republic.
OECD.
So Polish people don't drink the most in Europe, and they don't drink only vodka. Actually, beer is also well consumed. Another stereotype, or actually a saying, I would like to fight here using the opportunity. The saying, drunk as a Pole. If you don't know, was first time used by Napoleon Bonaparte. Actually, he said that to his soldiers, and it had a positive, not negative meaning. Napoleon said to his soldiers, you can drink, but you need to be drunk like a Pole, which means, despite being under influence, be able to get up and fight.
Thank you for that little anecdote here on Brussels, My Love. We also want to check in with the people here in Brussels if they are planning to have a Dry January. So we took our Euronews microphone to the streets to ask them.
I was planning to do it, but it's my birthday this week, so I think I'm not going to.
I think it's a good idea. Personally, I don't drink that much, so it's not a problem for me.
But I feel that's better to have a drink sometimes than stop it during a month, but why not?
I guess 1 month for us is just not a big deal, but then I'm not sure for Westerners.
I feel like if you just do it more throughout the year, then it isn't necessary to have one dedicated month of no drinking, because that'll just be an excuse to drink more later on.
Mixed views there. Yeah, the last guy saying abstinence will mean you'll just catch up later. Another one saying that Westerners, we have no self-discipline, perhaps.
I think that was the message there.
Yeah.
We were schooled, yeah.
Well, yeah. But another interesting conversation I saw over on US media this week was whether or not to label alcohol. Now, I know Ireland will introduce labels, one of the only countries in the world, next May 2026, stating that there's a link between alcohol and cancer, and also putting a pregnancy warning, and also stating that alcohol causes liver disease, and also the amount of calories as well. Dorota, do you think this would be something that other countries should do?
Why not? It works for the cigarettes. Why not do it for the alcohol? And also, I I've seen many reports over Christmas, actually, that the business of non-alcoholic drinks in Europe is boosting, actually. So there are more and more drinks and beverages which are non-alcoholic, but they are like substitutes. They taste the same, which are now being produced by many small companies in Europe, and they are becoming more and more popular.
Information is always good. I mean, if it informs the lifestyle choices of the consumers, that is fine.
Would it work, though, do you think, in the UK and Ireland?
Well, in principle, you know, as you say, you already have these labels on food. Even in kind of a lot of restaurants in the UK, you now have on their menu in the restaurant, you have how many calories there are on each of their products. Alcohol has traditionally been exempted from that, and there's obviously a very powerful alcohol lobby. And you know, many wine and beer producers perhaps behind that, but it's hard to say why they should be exempted when it is a source of calories, it is a source of health risks, as many foods are.
And just looking ahead to 2025, does anyone here have any New Year's resolutions? Is that something you do, Dorota?
Well, I'm looking forward to 30th of June, because it will be the last day of Polish presidency. And from the 1st of July, my resolution will start, which means work less.
I like it. Work less. What about you, Antonius?
Well, you know that I started a new think tank, a new thinking movement with EPIC, so that's a very big New Year's resolution that will take up most of my time.
So we have two workaholics on our panel. What about you, Jack? Have you anything non-work related that you're focused on?
I'm going to give you one for the EU, so even more work related, which is, you know, it's often said the EU responds to a crisis, and as we've just heard, there's a lot of crises on the way. So will they fulfill that motto and actually you know, make that their resolution for 2025?
Well, we will see. As I said earlier, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, is recovering in bed from pneumonia, but she's making sure that she'll be back. So we wish her a very speedy recovery. And on that point, we can bring our conversation to an end. If anyone out there would like to get in touch and let us know if you have a special resolution or plan or dream for 2025, or if you think the European Union should adopt some, do let us know. You can reach out to us on brusselsmylove@euronews.com. You can also send us a message on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram, or all the various different social medias, and we will, of course, always get back to you. Thank you so much now to our panel, to Dorota, to Jack, and Antonius for being with us, and thank you so much for watching. As always, if you want any more information on any of the stories we've covered, keep an eye on our website, euronews.com. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in. Take care and see you next time.